I'm really excited today because I'm joined by a very, I was going to say very old friend of mine. You're not necessarily very old, but you're a friend of mine that I've known for a very long time. We used to work together, basically working for the British government. I mean, that's how I describe it these days. When we were on a program to remodel the education sector in the UK between, what was it, 2004 to 2009. I was there, so you were probably there a couple of years before that. His name's Alex Nairn. He's a guy I really deeply respect. You were leader of one of the programs, or I think the only program we had running when I first arrived. And you only ever went higher and higher up the organisation after that. And every time I was in one of your sessions, it was just fascinating. You basically led me into the world of change management with all the support I could possibly imagine. And you are definitely one of the reasons that I am doing WorkshopBank today, and that I still love and enjoy being a change management professional and facilitator. So, welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you very much. That was a hell of an introduction.
Well, I try and pimp my guests as much as I possibly can. So, but welcome. So, we're going to have a conversation about a topic I know that's close to your heart. I mean, if you're still talking about dynamic facilitation now, then I know it's very close to your heart because you were big into it in the last year or so that we were working together. Now, our audience may not have a clue what dynamic facilitation is. So, could you give us a brief overview of how it works, where it came from, how to use it, the objectives of it, and I'm really interested to relearn all of this.
Okay. Well, if I can give you the kind of headline of it first of all.
Yeah.
Tell you what I like about it, and then I'll tell you how it works. It doesn't require any preparation by the facilitator whatsoever. You don't need to have any content knowledge at all. All you need is 4 flip chart easels, lots and lots of paper, white tack, blue tack, whatever, marker pens, about 12 to 15 people that are passionate about a challenge they've got. And that last point is crucial. Don't ever do dynamic facilitation if there's people in the room don't care about the issue, because you're about to create a very, I'll use the word again, dynamic interaction between the group that will create something new just by them all talking about it. And clearly if you've got passive people in the room, it doesn't work. So you've got all this flip chart stuff. You've got 15 people. They're sitting in a semicircle in front of the 4 easels, and off you go. Now, dynamic facilitation is not about finding the best idea that came into the room and filtering down all the others. Okay? Dynamic facilitation is about taking impossible challenges and finding brand new answers to them that the group create because of their interaction, because of the time that they have together, and because of the process that they are involved in. Okay. Let me say, first of all, the dynamic facilitation, I'm not saying it's better than every kind of facilitation. It should be used for every situation, because it shouldn't. Every kind of facilitation has got its place. The kind of facilitation that dynamic facilitation isn't is, let's brainstorm 100 ideas, let's stick dots on lots of pieces of paper, let's count the one with the most dots, and let's disregard the 97 other ideas that are on the board, and now we'll just concentrate on the 3 that are left. What the hell happened to the other 97? That can be it can be such a put off for delegates. If they've written something on a flip chart, which is immediately nobody puts a dot on because nobody gives a damn about it. And that's not a great way to engage a group in problem solving. So what you do with dynamic facilitation, I'll tell you where it came from later on, but for the moment, what you do with dynamic facilitation is you have 4 flip charts. And as I say, these 12 to 15 people in a semicircle in front of them. The facilitator stands with the pen at the flip charts. And the flip charts are labeled problem statement, solutions, concerns, and data or facts. Data or facts. Okay,
Yeah.
That's the four flip charts. What's wonderful about dynamic facilitation is you never ever hear a facilitator say to someone, "Not time for solutions yet. We'll get to solutions later."
Yeah. Yeah.
Or that's not what we're covering today. We'll keep that aside for another meeting, or whatever. Whatever the people in that group want to say is captured by the facilitator and captured onto the flip charts as either the problem statement, the solution, the concerns and negativity, as some people would view it, the concerns, or the data and facts. That way, everything that's said in the room is captured and respected as a piece of information. The way you would start it, a dynamic facilitation session, is with the problem statement. What is the problem you as a group are committed to solving here today, and you all want to solve it? Otherwise, you shouldn't be in the room.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to articulate that perfectly, because everybody will have a different way of framing the problem. So you need to get the group to a position where they're happy to run with one version. But that doesn't take very long, because once again, because of the way that the DF works, it can be their versions can come into play later. So you would start with a problem statement, and then immediately you would ask the group or the person who came up with the final version of the problem statement, you'd ask them, what's your solution?
Okay, you literally jump straight to solution from the problem.
Yeah. You capture solutions, but then people would have concerns about that solution.
Yeah.
That concern, and capture that concern, but it doesn't make the solution wrong.
No.
And that's the thing. Whenever I've done DF, the thing that there was less conflict than we normally have in these meetings, because normally in facilitation environments, you often get two ideas and one of them wins.
Yeah.
And that means the other one loses.
Yeah.
And that means you really don't say a word for the rest of the bloody meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You've lost that person there.
Fault by somebody else. In a dynamic facilitation environment, your opinion, my opinion, your solution, my concern, your concern, my facts, your facts, all equal, and all captured, because they add up to an understanding of the issue.
Okay.
And it's what sequence they come out. As you can imagine, the facilitator's working quite hard.
Yeah.
Because you spend a lot of time writing stuff onto flip charts, and you're not necessarily writing exactly what they say. You're pulling from them. What do they mean by what they say? So the interpretation.
So there's an amount of an element of interpretation that the facilitator has to take on board.
Interpretation is confirmed with the person who said it. It's not one of these things where you say something to me, I think I know what you mean, so I'll write it down differently.
Yeah.
To make sure. Tell me what you're saying when you say that. What do you mean when you say that? And that's what I capture as the interpretation. So we're getting deep and deep and deep and deep. And the other thing you never allow in facilitation is two delegates to go head to head.
Okay. So
because that would be a win-lose situation.
So the conversation is always via the facilitator, is it?
It always comes through the facilitator. And before you know it, you're starting to get a free-flowing conversation where people can say what they like, what they don't like, what they know, what they don't know. And the other thing that happens is the problem statement changes.
Okay.
At some point, you will always have someone say, I'll tell you what the real problem is. And then suddenly you've got yourself a new problem statement, and now you're back to what's the solution to this new problem.
What happens if the whole group says, no, rubbish, that's the old problem statement was the right one? You still do you have to keep going, or
just keep going? Because one problem statement doesn't necessarily wipe it. It just becomes another piece of information that deserves some attention.
Yeah.
And find yourself going back to the old problem statement, so be it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that what you're doing is you're purging the room.
Yeah.
charging the room of all the information they walked into the room with.
Yeah.
And you're getting it down and you're treating it with respect. And then there's a point, always in a dynamic facilitation, where the room goes quiet. And as a facilitator, you're terrified.
Yeah. That's right.
Got an answer and they've shut up. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because it means that they have actually purged themselves, or they're now deeply thinking about it. And the worst thing a facilitator can do at that moment is fill the gap.
Right.
You stand there and you let them think about it. And if you panic and say, well, can we stick dots on the answer if we like, whoa, you're back to where you shouldn't have started from. So you just stay quiet, and then suddenly someone will say, I'll tell you what I've been thinking, or what about this, or do you think this would be a good idea? And off you go again. But there is a process that you bring in the middle of DF that you can do once or twice, and it's called a bookmark.
Okay. How does that work?
What you do is you simply flip over a blank sheet of paper, flip chart paper, and you say, can we just summarize where we are now and where we came from and what's happened along the way? And just by doing that process on a flip chart, you bring the group together.
Okay.
So flip charts suddenly come together in a summary created by the. You get one of the group to actually do the writing on the flip chart, you really hit the jackpot, because now they own.
Yeah, of course.
They own the combined output of the group.
See, you'd only do that for the bookmarking to bring the audience up.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, the rest of the time you're managing the environment and making sure everybody's heard, everybody's respected, there's no conflict, everything's captured, all that kind of stuff. So effectively, I mean, if I had to summarize this, it's a conversation that's recorded, and then because it gets deeper and deeper and deeper and more exploratory, things begin to appear in the room that nobody came in with.
Right.
That's the secret of DF. It is not about somebody. It's about. I mean, the guy who invented it called Jim.
Sorry, that you just dropped out then, and that's quite important.
He calls it choice creating, and what the rooms do.
What's the guy's name?
Jim Ruff.
Jim Ruff.
He calls it choice creating because what the room is doing is creating new choices. Because of its conversation, new things will emerge.
Okay.
I'll tell you an example of a DF session that I actually did in an environment that you and I worked in. And it was when I was doing some training on DF. And we started off with the problem statement, how can we get better chips in the canteen? And that was quite seriously.
I hope that was with our senior managers.
It was indeed. How can we get better chips in the canteen? And when they came up with that, I thought, oh, this is going to be a disaster. It was far from a disaster, because it was something they all felt passionate about. And do you know how it ended up? It ended up with a problem statement is, how can we make the restaurant more customer responsive?
Wow.
And if we'd actually started and stayed on a facilitation process about how to get better chips.
Yeah, we would have ended up with better chips, and that's it.
Ended up with better chips, maybe.
Yeah.
Or we'd just gone to about how to, who's going to go and talk to the chef, or shall we give them a cookbook for Christmas? That's what the answer would have been. But actually, we opened it up to a bigger issue that chips, and they could tell anybody. Now, why couldn't they tell anybody? Because they weren't customer responsive. Okay, what can we do about that?
Yeah. So how long did it take to get from chips to responsive?
40 minutes. And I mean, I have run DF with people that have had 8 meetings trying to solve an issue, and we've solved it in 3/4 of an hour.
Wow.
It's taken 8 because they were stuck in this narrow channel with this narrow question.
Yeah.
When they explored the question, they got deeper into it and discovered they were actually trying to answer probably the wrong question, or there was another way of looking at it, whatever.
Right, okay. So it's almost like a root cause analysis technique, right?
That's it's a root cause. It may be a root cause analysis, and that may be where it goes, but it's more than that, because then it generates an answer.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't just find out what the issue is.
Yeah.
It produces a brand new answer that nobody could have possibly thought of when they walked into the room. Nobody. Because you're working with 15 brains or 12 brains coming together as one through the bookmarks, through the process.
And how does the audience normally feel at the end of a process like that?
Well, they become very energetic, because they can see themselves going somewhere. It starts off, I mean, you start a DF session, it's a bit like a conversation in a pub.
Yeah.
Everybody just says what they want to say.
Yeah.
And the facilitators just capture it, and whatever you want to say is fine. That's what you want to say. If you care about the issue and you've got something to say, it's captured.
Yeah.
In any sequence you like. It's not about some, let's talk about the issue. No, it's nothing like that at all. It's whatever on your mind right now is what you need to say, and we need to hear it. And of course, that allows people to be themselves. If I'm the kind of person that wants to go straight to the solution, I'll go straight to the solution. The kind of person that wants to say it's never going to work, I'll fill the concerns page for you, in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
If I'm the kind of person that needs to have the facts before the rest of the room can make decisions, I will give you all the facts and they will be captured, So everybody's allowed to be themselves.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, if you run a normal, I say normal, but if you run a strict facilitation process where you have a tool where you've got you're starting at position A and you always get to position B because the tool drives you in that direction. If you're doing that with a group, there's always 2 or 3 people who want to rebel against the process because they just don't agree with the process. It's not that they don't agree with the problem or even the solution at the end, they just don't like the process. So it sounds like with this that you wouldn't necessarily get that problem.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is DF isn't the process.
No, that's right, yeah.
Flip charts that listen to people. And it's not a process. And what happens is the people find their own way through there by being listened to.
Yeah.
And respected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And talk safely. I mean, I've had people come up to me, board members come up to me and said, that's the first time I've been listened to in a board meeting.
Wow.
And the thing was, they weren't even listened to. It was me that listened to them.
Yeah, because everyone else is thinking about their own thing that they're about to say, so no one's actually listening to anyone.
Did respond to what was said,
Yeah.
So there's a group listening, but the important thing is the facilitators listening and capturing. And of course, I can then ask questions from which means it really has been listened to.
Yeah. So when would DF not work? I mean, I'm in. I would use it. I would want to use this on everything. Why would you? What's the reason that you wouldn't want to use DF?
That's a really good question. You wouldn't use it if you didn't know 4 flip charts. That's not entirely true, actually. I've seen people try to do it just by sticking things on the wall. You're always tearing off flip charts and sticking them up on the wall and starting again with a new sheet,
Yeah.
But I've never tried to do it without 4 flip charts because you're moving at such a pace. You need to be efficient. When would I not use it? I wouldn't use it if I had. Well, I've done DF with 25 people in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I didn't get to 25 people.
Yeah.
I didn't.
So size of group matters, doesn't it?
People that contributed and the rest, I kind of sucked them in occasionally, but they were never really there. And at the end of it, I don't believe we got a group. I don't believe the whole group believed in what the problem was and cared whether it was solved.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't use it if people were apathetic. I wouldn't use it in a group that was too big. And I wouldn't use it for something that it clearly wasn't needed for. I know that sounds like a bit vague, but they have to be big problems.
Right.
Really big problems that people really care about and they cannot see a way through it. This is great for multi-agency work.
Right. Right.
People, because the big issue about multi-agency work is to say that their issues are different and my issues different. And so actually, you've all got a commonality that can exploit.
So there's an element of team building to it as well, is there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not what it's intended to do, but the team, by creating something together and getting excited about it and then moving on to solutions, it does create relationships within a team.
And when do you know you're there? When do you end? Is it literally just a time thing? This is all the time we've got, or?
That's a great question, and it's the one that challenges me the most as to when. The last time I used DF was just 3 weeks ago, and it was a big issue inside a team of board members, and we managed very quickly to move away from what the issue was to what it really was. That happened very quickly, and then there was a point when I knew there was nowhere else DF could take them. So I then moved on to more traditional, okay, what's your next steps if this is going to be a solution? And they didn't even notice the join.
Okay.
I didn't suddenly announce, okay, DF's finished, you've all got a solution, let's move forward. I just said, so what are you going to do about the solution? So we make an action plan, and I just got another flip chart and off they went. So as far as so there is a point as a facilitator when you'll know that the room is energized, the room wants to get on with fixing this thing, now what to do. And at that point, as I say, you don't put a light switch and say DF is now switched off, folks. You just move naturally into a bit of action planning.
Okay, and so action planning is the natural step because you've got your solution. Everyone's agreed with the solutions, and it's about working out who's going to do what when.
And you can tell it. You can tell in the room when people are ready. It's a scary process for facilitators because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the reason it's less scary for me, but it still is scary, is that I've now done it enough to know, trust the people, trust the energy in the room, that something will come through.
Yeah. Yeah, people always come through. I mean, it's not about the facilitator anyway. So you've got to kind of take yourself away from that fear and think, well, they're here to solve their own problems, and all I'm trying to do, my only job is to help them get there, and it's not like they're going to leave me hanging or anything. And I love it. Yeah,
I mean, I mentioned the bookmark. You can do more than one bookmark. It depends how long you're actually working with them. You might decide you need a second bookmark because you can see the groups move to a significantly different place. And as I say, definitely the second bookmark you get done by one of the delegates. Okay. Because if you do the first one, get them up with a pen in hand, and they will work really hard to make sure that the group work is captured and recognised.
Yeah.
I'll just say a little bit about Jim Ruff.
Yeah, do that, please. So Jim Ruff is the creator
of Dynamic Facilitation, and I know he'd be happy to talk to you.
Fantastic. I'd love to get him on.
I met him first of all in Frankfurt when I went to be trained. I then sponsored a course in London that he came to, and then I attended another one this year, in fact, just as a bit of a refresher. So I've actually met the guy 3 or 4 times now. He came up with this system because he was working inside a wood mill, a pulp mill in Washington State in America, and it was the workers versus the management. And nothing was working because they were shouting at each other, but they weren't communicating. They were talking to each other, but they weren't communicating. And he discovered, when I talk to you individually, I can hear that you've all got points. When you talk to each other, the points just go zooming past. So he invented this process to actually let everybody be heard.
Okay.
And obviously it's developed over time into the shape it's in now. You can, I mean, if you put Dynamic Facilitation into Google, he'll be there. You'll find it.
Okay. Well, I'll look it up, and I'll also include the links below this podcast as well, so people can find out a bit more about it. And so, does he do? Are there training courses that people can go on, or is there just stuff you can read about, or is actually maybe this video will be, or this podcast will be enough for people to give it a go?
I'll never be enough. Jim's mission is to save the world, and this is just one of his tools, the tool that he wants to use in lots of different environments to do that. But no, he runs seminars around. I think he was in Switzerland a couple of weeks ago. Austria have taken this on big time in local government.
Okay.
And they use it to have the community heard.
Yeah.
So they call it the Wisdom Council, and they use dynamic facilitation as a process to have the community speak to its government, local. It's once again, as you can imagine, bringing lots of disparate groups together in local. Yeah, brings them together every time. And as I say, if Austria have taken it on in a big way.
Fantastic. And what about the UK? Other countries? This sounds like a very interesting thing for America, actually. But
I've yet to find a local government official that will allow this to happen.
Oh, really?
There seems to be a fear. I've tried 3 or 4 times now. In fact, I'm working with another city at the moment, and this one's looking possible. There seems to be a fear that if you ask the people what they want, they'll tell you.
Can you imagine?
And that means, of course, we wouldn't be able to do it because they're bound to ask for the wrong things.
That's right. Yeah, we won't be able to deliver. So let's not find out what they want.
There you go. So hopefully, we need a local official with courage.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So a private company is much more up for this normally. Have you found, or
this is fine for it's fine for commercial environments. It's fine for anybody actually. It's leaders of local government leaders can find this being a challenge to their authority, and they could lose control if the people get too many no's. But they don't understand how this thing works, and that's not what it's about. But for any organisation who's got a big problem, and I keep emphasising big, impossible problems, are the best topics for dynamic facilitation.
Okay. So they're the modern leaders, aren't they? So if one of our listeners wants to try out dynamic facilitation and they come against that objection that their subjects are worried about where it might go, how could they overcome that objection? What have you come across that objection and you've solved it, so you know how to deal with it, or is it always different?
I've never come across it because I actually don't tell them in advance
what they're going to do. Right. Okay.
They do. I agree with them. What is the output you want to achieve? What's the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
Ask them to have 4 flip charts in the room.
Yeah.
And then I just explain to them exactly how it's going to work. Love it. They absolutely love it. Delegates love this process because they're all engaged virtually all of the time. Once again, depending on the size of the group, but they're virtually engaged all of the time, and it really works. But I would never, ever explain to someone in advance dynamic facilitation, expect them to buy it and understand it, because you've got to be in it. You know, it's a bit like telling me, this is how to ride a bike, but they don't have a clue how to ride a bike till you're on it.
Yeah. You're on it. So you just get on with it, you do it, and the results speak for themselves, but the process is probably a bit too scary and unnecessary to go deep into.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it's virtually with all the processes, all the events that I would do, I wouldn't tell them the deal. I'd say, what is we're trying to achieve here? I'll get you there. And then I'll just turn up and I'll do it, and then they're on it. And once they're on it, they can see that they're people, because if you're working with a CEO or a nervous CEO, they can see very quickly that there's people that are engaged, and that's all they want. That's all they want. They're having a good time and getting a result. Right.
Got it. Well, personally, I think it's fantastic, and the main reason I love it is, and it's a purely selfish reason, is that I don't have to do any preparation before I turn up. You just turn up, you do it. There's no materials. You just need a willing group of people, and I love those. I love those processes where you just literally just have to trust it. You don't know where you're going, and it's exciting for the facilitator as just as much as the audience or the delegates.
Yeah, I mean this lack of prep thing is really quite important, because I'm quite happy to know vaguely what the issues they want to fix, and I'm very happy to know that. If I'm working with the CEO, that CEO absolutely wants me to know the issue when I say it, but I also know within 10 minutes the issue will change.
Yeah, and this process allows it to.
But if you were to tell the CEO whatever your problem is, that's not the one that will be solved. It's someone else.
Yeah. Much better to let them have that realization privately rather than ram it down their throat beforehand.
Happen in front, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
That's great.
And the only advice I would give people is find a safe situation to try it. Go looking for a problem with a safe group of people, and once again, make sure they care about the issue, make sure it's significant enough, and then just give it a go.
Yeah.
But don't tell them it's the first time you've done it.
Yeah.
The first time I did it, I did not tell them it was the first time I'd done it. I told them I had done it several times. It had been a fantastic success.
Yeah.
That was before I even went on a training course.
Really?
Yeah, I just read about it on the website, and I thought, this feels right. It feels right.
Yeah.
It just went with my gut.
Yeah, it does just tick some boxes there that experienced facilitators know that about what works, what doesn't work particularly well about very rigid, very, very, very strict processes.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Alex, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been highly entertaining as always, and highly informational and really interesting. So one more thing, if people want to contact you, what's the best way to do that? I mean, I don't think you're going to get a flood of connections, but if anyone wants to speak to you about this, would that be possible?
Yeah, I don't know how you connect people up through your...
I can leave your email address, or would that be okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Fantastic.
But I would certainly ask people to go on the Dynamic Facilitation website.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave that as a link.
It's about it. He says it in much more articulate, shorter period of time than I have.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully I can have a conversation with Jim as well, and just complete the circle. But this has been a fantastic introduction. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Alex. See you soon.